morning, and thank you for watching Neuqua Connection. I'm your host, Riley Ebert, and with me today is Dr. Fuhrer. How are you today, Dr. Fuhrer?
Good morning. I'm doing great.
Good. So I wanted to talk to you a little bit about your new position at Neuqua, but tell me first, what is it that you do right now, currently?
Sure. Currently, I'm an assistant principal. My role is specific to curriculum instruction, so primarily I work with department chairs and teachers on a little bit of helping them guide and lead their content in their classrooms, and then what are the activities, the assessments, the strategies, the instructional, the teaching things that are happening in a classroom, working with them on that. Outside of that, I've got responsibilities, for example, related to senior honors assemblies, red carpet rally. I've done a number of things since I've been in this role. This is my 14th year in this role. So each of us assistant principals do take on separate roles that are larger events, things like Indian Prairie Scholars Induction, Neuqua Honors, just different things like that. So we do events. We also all evaluate teachers, so that's a primary role that I have as well. But fundamentally working with department chairs on professional development, on the content of classes, and then the instructional strategies used in classrooms.
Okay, so your title is assistant principal.
Correct.
And you said there's more than one?
So we have 4 assistant principals. We have 3 at this building, and then 1 at our freshman campus that kind of serves as the leader of that building.
Okay, so individually you guys do pretty much the same thing, or is it kind of split up?
So we divide it. We have an assistant principal at our freshman building.
Okay.
We have an assistant principal for operations, that's Carrie Cahill, assistant principal for student services, that's Sharon Ruff, and assistant principal for curriculum and instruction. So operations includes everything from the facility to the master schedule, but Carrie also does student activities. Sharon Ruff will take care of all of our student services, leads our guidance house, and also works with our social workers, psychologists, and special education. We all have responsibilities over at the freshman center, but the daily kind of day-to-day operations are Dave Perry, and then we all work as a team with our athletic director and then Principal Bob McBride.
Okay, so what's your favorite part about your current job right now?
I love working with department chairs. I've known them for a long time, and they are a phenomenal group. I think they're one of the reasons we are the school that we are. Many of them have been here for a very long time. That consistency is super important. I think most of the time when students go through school, they experience it through individual classrooms, individual periods, individual teachers. But there's a cohesiveness that helps define who we are, how we operate, the decisions that we make, how we value students, things that we find important that we want to make a good experience here for kids. That stuff is all sort of behind the scenes, and it's my job to work with department chairs to make sure what happens every day, 8 times a day, 48 minutes each time, that is a cohesive and clear experience for people. Typically, you don't notice those things until they're not there, but when they are, most people have only gone to one high school. Right. So they experience it as the only thing that they know. And that's what we want it to be like. We want it to be like, all right, this is the way Neuqua Valley sort of does business a little bit and how kids experience it.
That's awesome. So now you have a new position coming up.
Yep.
You're going to be the principal of Neuqua Valley. How do you feel about that?
Well, I'm excited. I think it's a lot of pressure. There's certainly huge shoes to fill. I feel great that there are so many supportive people here, so many people that I've worked with for a long time, and so many people that know so much about what their role in their job is. That's super important. The principal can't run every single thing that goes on here at school. I'm not sure a principal can even understand all that goes on. We trust a lot of times, even on our admin team, the things that go on here are taken under the wing of responsibility by so many different people. It's just a super busy place. There are kids in the pool at 5 a.m. and on the stage at 11 p.m. and everything in between. So it's a super busy place, and the only day that's really a break will maybe be like a Sunday afternoon, and that's kind of it. And even then, there are people from Aramark and different people doing the work to keep the building clean, keeping it safe, keeping it working and operating. And so what I need to do is take my own advice and make sure I don't feel like I need to be responsible for everything. I think I need to trust the people that I work with, because I've worked with them for a long time and that's easy to do. And then I need to be the best version of me that I can be. If a student ever asked me, what do they want to do in life? How do they want to figure things out? I would always say, be the best version of you. So I need to take my own advice, not try to do everything that's been done before, even by previous principals prior to Dr. McBride, and be the best person I can be in the role that I have now.
Amen.
Mm-hmm.
So how did being the principal come to you? How did that
So, Dr. McBride, I've been here for 14 years in my current office. I was a department chair before that and started teaching here when the school opened in '97. So certainly that experience is very helpful. But Dr. McBride, I think people know him very well. He's super qualified and just a phenomenal leader. And so it would only be a matter of time in my mind before another district would really want his services for a superintendent role, which is typically who principals work for. In a place like this, Indian Prairie, superintendent oversees 3 major high schools, 7 middle schools, any number of elementary schools. Huge school district, 25, 26, 27,000 students. But there are many other smaller districts where you can be a superintendent, and I think Dr. McBride really wanted to work more closely with schools and students than systems. So he was looking for, I think, a good situation. He took his time. He was certainly recruited for many years to do different jobs in different places, but wanted to be in a place where he felt comfortable. And Lockport made a great choice. He's going to be superintendent there. They are a one-school district, so they're a district, but they're also just one high school.
Right. About
3,500 students, very similar to what we are. So he's the superintendent. It's going to be working closely with their Board of Education, work closely with their 2 building principals, kind of like Neuqua. They have a freshman center, and they also have a 10, 11, 12 center. So I think he was a super appealing candidate in a ton of different ways for why he would be a good leader for them. So when he leaves, they post that position, so it's open. So I applied for that position. I'm sure there were other candidates that applied for it. I'm not aware of those other candidates. The process is very just confidential in the sense that it respects people's privacy. There might be another assistant principal in another school that might apply here outside of the district, and they try not to make that very public about who applies for what job.
Right.
There's a number of different rounds of interviews. You interview here at school, you interview at the district office, you interview with leaders such as the superintendent, assistant superintendents at the district level, and then it's a little bit of a survival of the fittest. So you get to a certain point and they feel comfortable with your leadership. Again, I think to be a teacher here, department chair, assistant principal, to work my way through is more of a credit to the school than it is to me, because the school, I feel like, in a professional sense, raised me towards this position, in that they gave me the skills over the years that I could learn from all of them, and they've made contributions that most of the times they're not even aware of what they've done for me. And so I feel like as a principal, certainly you're giving back, but on a daily basis, you're handling everything from what's going on in the hallways to what's going on in classrooms to what's happening on athletic fields, on the stage. So it's a big job, but I'm super excited.
That's awesome. So when you applied, was there any hesitation?
I think so. I had a colleague come up and tell me the day after Dr. McBride sort of accepted his position and they knew that there would be a new principal here, he said to me, there are people that run toward the fire and there are people that run away from it. And he gave me a big kind of like firm handshake. And I think he wanted me to run to the fire, so to speak, because the job is can be pretty crazy. And I offer a third perspective. There are people that pause before they decide to do either. And I gave myself a week to think about it, talk with my family, did a little bit of reflecting on myself. I don't want to get caught up in being the principal and having that role sort of go to your head a little bit. Particularly a school like this, you know, we have a lot of accolades that come our direction. A lot of it is our faculty, our staff, our students, and how we work together and what we value. And I want to make sure I'm making the right decision for me first, and then is this a good decision for the school? Am I going to be a good fit for who we are? I think as I've been here for a while, that question was a little bit easier to answer than, like, is it going to be a good fit for me? You're talking about a tremendous commitment in terms of time. And I think I'm ready for that. I'm ready to give back to the school in the form of that leadership. I'm ready to be the role that he's done, but in my way, whatever that might be. And I'm happy and I hope people are patient to let me sort of figure that out as we go along.
That's awesome. So I have one last question for you.
Sure.
Tell me something that a lot of people don't know about you.
Well, I think my original job, I did not go into education as a first answer. And I think there's a lot of lessons in there. There were lessons for me, there were lessons for everyone else. Particularly for this generation, I think, as people growing up, when I was a kid, people did a job for like 30 or 40 years. They worked for a corporation, they worked for a business, they sat at a desk, they maybe changed jobs within that company, but there was a phrase called Maytag man. And that phrase meant, like Maytag, they make washing machines and other appliances. You like worked for a company for like 40 years. And that's what you did. You retired from the company you started in. And what our career outlook should be more now today is most people are going to change jobs a ton. They might not even work for anybody but themselves. The whole gig economy about doing different things. And I felt like I experienced that a little bit, even though I've been in education, this is my 25th year. My first profession was as a broadcast journalist. So I went to Mizzou, got a broadcast journalism degree, and worked for KOMU, Channel 7 or Channel 8. And then I worked for NBC Nightly News as a producer, field producer, for about 2.5 years. And I had some things happen to me in that career that I felt like were really transformative. They were really begging me to answer my own question about what I wanted to do, how I wanted to give back. So people know today, the news business can be very brutal. You got to find your niche. You got to find your own passions within that field. I happen to find, for television, I fell into something where I felt like I was waiting for disasters to happen a little bit too frequently and a little bit too passionately. I had something particular happen to me where we were going to cover a plane that basically we found out later had a goose that flew into its engine. It's a rather large plane, and it was flying basically east to west across mid-Missouri and was going to maybe possibly not make it to Kansas City International Airport. So we started hearing about this right around Memphis or Nashville, and the plane had enough fuel. It was starting to dump fuel. It just didn't know if it was going to make it because one of its engines was not running correctly. And I remember thinking, driving to a small little town in Missouri that had a very large runway. It was called Sedalia. Sedalia held each year the Missouri State Fair. So all the big country stars would land their private jets on this large airfield in the middle of nowhere, but it was an airfield where this plane could land. As it turns out, the plane landed at Kansas City International, didn't need to land in Sedalia, and everything was fine. It made an emergency landing, and all was well. But I remember thinking how awesome it would be if that didn't happen, and what a story that would be, because we were going to be the only news organization that was going to be there. And then really kind of like checking my ego, checking my emotions, checking my passions, and going, what in the world was I thinking in that moment at that time? So it was a major shift for me to go from sort of that selfish mindset, which I felt like I didn't have, but that drew out of me, so clearly it was there. And I felt like I just needed to do something different. So within a month, I resigned. I told my parents I'm coming home. They were freaking out, even though I'm an only child, and you would think they'd want to be like, oh, awesome. They were like, no, this is not a good idea. This is not going to be like some permanent, decision you've made. So I decided to go at first back to get an MBA because I didn't know quite what to do. I was not lost, but kind of. But my mom was in education for a very long time, and at that point there were a ton of teachers that were retiring. A ton of teachers that had been hired in the 1960s had all reached about 30, 35 years. So there was a massive need for teachers, very much like there is now. So they were hiring, and I think my parents were interested in like a job. So what would be something you could do that would get you out of this house and employed and be on your own? So what I learned, though, when I started student teaching, I student taught at Waubonsie, where I first worked in 1992, 93, is that I loved it, and that it was something very much like journalism, like I was trying to gather up stories and tell them, and communicate to people and inform them. Just like a journalist, I think, can educate people, and I think it's an awesome career. I just happened to be caught in a situation where I just felt like the timing was not right for me. There are times when I look back and say, boy, if I hadn't have had that plane experience, would I still be in that field? And I think the answer could be very well yes. But because of that happening, I'm super happy with what happened in my life and where I've gone, and I found like I fell into something where I can still use the skills that led me toward journalism. I can still use those to be an educator and to lead people and to inform people and to be a part of something that I think is really good. What is totally different is I feel like we tap into people's positive humanity every day in an education, at a school. Unlike education, or unlike broadcast journalism, which can tap into murder rates and shootings and robberies and things that are not going well in Washington and this, that, and the other thing. And we just have a huge appetite for bad news when it comes to television. So what can fulfill our appetite for good things to happen? And I think for young people, schools are where that can happen. Most people wouldn't say, well, school is where all my happiness happens. We get that it's not always the case. choice, but we hope we provide people with a good runway to head toward what the rest of their life can be. That you're picking up some of the things, the skills, the characteristics, the behaviors, the choices that are going to lead you to a place where you're able to make the choices you want to. I could choose to change careers, and that wasn't something where, well, gee, I never went to school for this. I had to go back. I had to go to night classes and day classes and work in between. I substitute taught for a year and a half. I was getting certified. You just got to be willing to do that. And I was 23, 24 at the time, so I wasn't 33 or 34. But I think many of people that are your age are probably going to end up going back to school, are going to go get additional training, are going to just seek something different, and you shouldn't be afraid to do that. Because you're going to find, if you really take your decisions seriously, live your life a little bit, because you're going to reach a point where you're going to better find out who you are than you think you are now. Whatever grasp you think you have, that's just who you are now, and that may be who you become later. I'm glad I waited, went through those transitions, which seemed awful at the time, because I landed at a place where, I can't believe what I'm doing next year. It's pretty mind-boggling to me that I've been at a place where when I started, I was up in classroom B241 teaching world history and U.S. history and government, working with awesome colleagues, and thought, all right, this is what I'm doing. And then just life takes you in different directions, and suddenly you find yourself, kind of with a team of people on our admin squad that is just, they're awesome. I work with great people, and that's really all you can ask for when it comes down to it.
Nice. That's an awesome story. Unfortunately, that's all the time we have.
Yep.
Thank you so much for talking to me.
No problem. Thank you.
This has been Neuqua Connection. I'm your host, Riley Ebert, again with Dr. Fuhrer. Best of luck next year.
Thank you.
Thank you for watching.